Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Yemeni Alliance Committee Tales from the Happy Land series. Tales from the Happy Land is an initiative dedicated to the storytelling of the Yemeni diaspora. So we have an amazing speaker today. You might know her from the Yemeni Alliance Committee chairperson, always doing webinars, panels, and whatnot. She's amazing, really an amazing human being who I absolutely love and adore. And I'm super excited to interview her about her experience in Yemen and what it was like. And so before I do that, I just wanted to start off with a fun fact about Yemen. Did you know that the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula, now known as Yemen, was previously known to geographers as the Arabia Felix, which is a Latin name meaning for the happy Arabia or the happy land. And that's how we got our name. So again, before I start, just one last thing. We have this thing where someone who would like to share a story, but don't want to, come on camera or are not comfortable coming to camera and sharing their story, but still would like to share something. And so this person's name is Daryl Coleman. He really shared this really brief story about his neighbor in Yemen, his Yemeni neighbor. And so I'm just going to read it real quick. And this is him. I'm narrating, by the way. I remember about 20 years ago, there was a man named Muhsin, and we called him David. He ran a corner store in Buffalo on the corner of Whitney and Hudson. I had gone to the corner store multiple times and got to know David and his family pretty well. On one occasion, I was barely surviving, and David noticed that I was not buying what I normally bought. He said, "What's wrong? Why are you not getting what you normally get?" And I told him quite honestly that I was a little short of money. He proceeded to grab a bag and fill it with everything I normally get, and he said to me, "You are in here every day, and you take this now, and you pay me when you can." That was honestly one of the single most touching moments I've ever experienced in my life. He always took a time to talk to me, and we would have great conversations about Yemen. We maintained that friendship even after he had relocated to the east side of Buffalo. Many times, I would visit him on my way to visit my parents at their residence. My mother called me one day and said that she saw on the news that there was a murder in my friend's store. I immediately turned on the news and heard that my friend, my brother, David, had been murdered. A thought that stickers me to this day, that someone could have been violence to such a peaceful man. Over the years, I have gotten to know many people in the Yemeni community here in Buffalo and Lackawanna. And you know how it goes. Once you're a friend to the community, you are a friend to the entire community. And I have always appreciated the kindness of the people, the delicious foods, and the genuine family feeling I have always received. I am honored to consider many of them my chosen family, who have warmly welcomed my giant African American frame into their homes and into their hearts. Aww, thank you. We love you, Daryl. I hope you're watching this. Okay, so back to the Tales from the Happy Land with our amazing guest, Jehan. When was the last time you visited Yemen?
I haven't been to Yemen in over 20 years. So the last time I visited was in 1996. Maybe I shouldn't share my age, but I was a teenager.
Okay, do you still have family there?
I do. I have aunts and I have cousins and I have uncles and I have a lot of family still back there.
And what part of Yemen did you live? Like, did you stay in one place or did you travel? Like, yeah, what
My
city?
family is originally from uh, Ib al Medina, so the actual city. So I have lived in Ib, in Sana'a, stayed in Taiz a little bit, and also Aden, and I have never been anywhere else, to be honest with you, just those four cities.
Yeah, that's amazing, actually. Like that you actually got to like experience the different parts of Yemen. Like I know you were a teenager, so that means you lived all your life here, and so that was your first time going. Like, did you have a culture shock, or did you like feel different, or how was it your first time?
Well, my first time was when I was 10 years old.
Oh,
And so we kind of had regular trips in the summer. And it was different. It was very different because, we're used to a lot of privileges here. And yeah, it was different. But the time when I went the second time, that one, I stayed there for a whole year. I actually went to
mm-hmm.
school there, and I mean, I adapted. It was, when you're in America, you're not American enough, and when you're in Yemen, you're not Yemeni enough. So it's
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
balancing those two identities. So, Alhamdulillah, I speak Arabic fluently, as fluent as possible. So
Yeah.
it was fine, and I started wearing the balto and the niqab and everything, and that's
Yeah.
Yemeni.
Yeah. So how was, like, would you mind sharing more about your experience? Like, how was school? Like, just overall, like, how was it different?
Yeah, school was interesting. So I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, I spent all my years here in the States, right? So going to school,
Mm-hmm.
and English is my dominant language. So going to high school in an all Arabic school, even though it was a private school, it was tough because I was learning about chemistry and Arabic and physics and math, and it was just
Yeah.
so different. It was confusing because I was just kind of thrown in.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an interesting experience.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. So, like, when I went to Yemen, like, although it was a private school, I attended a private school and it's mostly English speaking, but it still was like, it was hard just trying to like navigate it with everyone's like speaking Arabic, and like now you have to like kind of push yourself. It forces you to kind of learn the language, and so that was great. Would you mind like sharing your favorite part or like your favorite experience in Yemen, and like going over like your craziest experience? I know like a lot of like things happen in Yemen there, like to Americans or to the West is like, wow, really that happens, or like that's not normal, or like, you know what I mean? So do you have any of those moments that you're comfortable sharing, of course?
Mm. Oh, so many interesting experiences. But I think that being a Yemeni girl raised in America, so my family's obviously strict. So very, very strict growing up. I would have to go from school to home, home to school, and my mom drops me off and picks me up. And so I had no real freedom. So when I went to Yemen, my mom left me there. First of all, shout out to my mom for leaving me there. Um, I had so much freedom. I had so much freedom. It was the first time ever that I was able to go out with my, family and friends without adults and without my mom. And of course, $1 is like at the time it was like, I don't know if it was like 100 riyal or 150 riyal, something like that. So I was balling, I was shopping, and it was just it was fun. It was fun, and it was, I mean, the thing I remember about it the most, obviously there's weddings and there's parties and there's all these things that you get to go to, قات وشيشة ومدري إيش. Um, but it was safe. It was safe, and that's the thing that I mean, obviously it's not safe anymore. But even the safety here, I'm a mom now and I have teenage girls myself, and I can't say that I can let them out and be free the way I was when I was in Yemen. So I think that's something that I've never experienced anything like that, where just total freedom and everybody looks like you, everybody talks like you don't feel ostracized or discriminated against. And it was one of my favorite years in my life.
Thank you for sharing. Like, just you speaking reminds me of so much of like what I like when I lived Yemen. Like my last experience, like my last visit to Yemen was like, oh my god, I actually am in Yemen without my parents. Oh my god, this is so cool, and it it's really safe. Like things that you can do in Yemen, just like simple things. I know it's like just playing outside. Like that was our go-to. Like cemetery, that was like our that's that's our strategic location. Like meeting at a cemetery. I know it sounds crazy to Americans, but like meeting at a cemetery and playing there, it was one of the best feelings, and just that freedom. I'm sorry, 1 second. Let me just fix the audio.
I think it's good now.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So that safety aspect, and I visited, it was like 2000, it was like relatively new, like 2013, 14. Still, it was like safer, but 2011, 12 was like really, like sometimes we would leave the door open overnight, and it was just something that we forget, but it's okay if we do. It's not like the world is ending if we don't. Like compared to like living in the United States, that's just something that you have to check at least twice or three times if your door is closed or not. But yeah, what's your, like, what was the funniest experience that you had in Yemen? Like, of course, if you're comfortable sharing.
Funniest experience. I mean, I can laugh at it now, but it's kind of embarrassing. Um, so I was in Quran class. So I think I was a junior in high school. So صف
Mm-hmm.
ثاني ثانوي, I think. Um, and I was memorizing Quran, and I made a little mistake in my qira'ah, and the teacher pinched my hand. She pinched my hand and she punished me. And then what I did next was, that's the embarrassing part. I'm not proud of it. And mom, I'm sorry if you're watching, but so she pinched my hand and I got up and I yelled at her and I told her, "Who do you think you're talking to? Do you know where I'm from? I'm from America," and all this kind of stuff. So I got kicked out of the school, and I kind of embarrassed my mom and my family. But that's kind of something that it was funny that I was talking about how I'm an American, like I'm using that as a privilege. Like, who do you think you are? Like everybody else deserves to get beat up and not me. Um, but that was something that is memorable.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely like that, like hitting on the stick in the hand. So it's like something that I had to get adjust to, and sometimes I would be like, إيش عليا to my cousins, and I would put her hand in front to just be like, "Oh my God, take it from me, and I swear I will." Like I owe you whatever. I can't take it, and she'd be like, "Oh, so I can," or like so. No, like the the hitting aspect, I don't know, like I know to like Westerners, like, oh, you hit, but it's really not like that serious. um and it kind of like gets students to do their work, I guess. I'm not encouraging it, of course, disclaimer, but it's part of the culture, I guess. But it
I
was
mean, we used
something
to
that,
write lines, right? We used to write
huh?
lines. We used to write lines. Well, maybe not you, but when I was younger, when we used to get disciplined here in America, we would have to write lines if we get in trouble. So, discipline is it's relative.
Yeah. uh, that is yeah, yeah, no, yeah. um I wanted to ask you, of course, like, do you have any Jinn stories? Like, I know that's everyone kind of does. Especially like in Yemen, especially in Ib. Would you like mind sharing if you do have? If you don't, of course, like.
Okay, well, Garatana. I'm gonna say it in Arabic because it's gonna be it's gonna be interesting if it's in Arabic. Um, so في واحدة قالتنا قالوا يعني فيها سحر. تمام. بعدين قالت العاقلة حق الحارة يلا نوديها لعند القارئ عشان نشوف يعني إيش فيها. أني طبعا أكبر فضولية. رحت معاهم لعند القارئ. تمام. رحنا لعند القارئ and it was like عمارة كبيرة. واسمع صياح من بعيد. وبعدين دخلنا وكان في like غرفة الانتظار and أشوف أمامي like غرف وكمان like في ساحة وفيها بناديم مغطية في ناس فيها you know
Yeah.
تسمع صياح وضرب ومدري إيش أصوات عالية هكذا and خلط الحين العربي والإنجليزي and then
Yeah.
المهم في واحد من الشيوخ دخل هذه جارتنا لداخل الغرفة مع أمها ومدري إيش فأني جلست في غرفة الانتظار وبعدين شوية وأقوم أشوف يعني إيش ورا الستارة so دخلت أشوف ورا واحدة منهم إن في واحدة مرة ممددة وفي 4 رجال حولها واحد ماسك اثنين هكذا جنب راسه واثنين تحت جنب رجله والذي جنب رجله رابطين خيط على أصابع أرجله عز الله قدرك and وبعدين واحد أخذ عصا وضرب تحت رجلها وقال اخرج وهي تصيح تصيح بصوت عالي sorry to make you laugh.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
وهي تصيح بصوت عالي بصوت راجل it was
Yeah.
so scary oh my god so then قلت يا الله خلاص كملوا قال لي أروح معاهم so and then of course I'm still waiting so قلت خليني أروح ورا الستارة الثانية بس أروح أتشاقر كذا um, ودخلت وأشوف واحدة مرة كبيرة بالعمر طبعا كل واحدة مغطية أكيد مشرشفات وما أدري إيش فمش عارفة من هم بس نفس الشيء يعني في عصا في يد الشيخ وبيضربها من تحت رجلها and I don't know what was exactly happening but I think they were trying to beat the jinn out of her feet but
Yeah.
that experience I think إني جلست أترائي بعد هذاك المنظر كله like تقريبا سنة because شفت أشكال you know غريبة وأصوات غريبة so it was really scary.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you like get over it? Like, I can't imagine what like you like how you were feeling at the moment. But did you like regret going there? Did you kind of like okay? How did you process it afterwards, or like how did you understood that it was like oh they're trying to get the jinn out of her, and like did you believe in jinn at that before that or?
Oh, funny. Well, I've always watched scary movies, so it's not something new. Yeah, of course, I believe in jinn. I believe in jinn. I believed in it then, and I believed in it before that time.
Yeah.
Um, you know, of course, my grandmother raised me in Hamha, and she, you know, told us stories of جارة البيت, الصياد, um, all of these things. So we grew up kind of knowing that there are alternate creatures that are living amongst us.
Yeah.
So, you know, what about the da'awi, the ginni, buzik, or whatever, you know? So it's we've always known that they're a part of our life, you know, but it was so scary watching it. And I think afterwards, I was just reading a lot of Quran and I was, you know, I think with time, I forgot about it. Watching enough Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger, I think I got over it.
Like yeah, it's thank you for sharing. It's definitely relatable to a lot of people. I mean, especially Yemenis who lived in Yemen. I like when I went, like our family lived in Taiz, but we also like went to our village, and so like every time we went to the village, like there was like a rumors that like there's jinn in our house, and because like we haven't lived in it in so long and whatever, you know, and so it was just like I was always like on the edge, and like any kind of like slight of like movement is just like screaming and like get near or some or whatever, you know. And like it was like with all of us, like except for my mom. I think she was very brave because that was her village, so she controlled it. But like the Jin stories are very relevant, and it was a very like especially in the village, at least my village, like it was very very I guess common, and it's something they talk about like it's nothing. Oh yeah, I like a genre, like a Sayad is in it. Like it was just so common and so casually spoken about, and it was just like, what? Like there's something over there, and you guys are just going, and it's really bravery. I think it's so brave that they just talk about it so casually and own it and whatnot. So that's really cool. Um,
Well, you know, my
well,
neighbor had this story of, and this story is one of the scariest stories. She said in كان في جارة البيت, there was somebody in the house or something in the house, okay, and there was a party. Okay, there's a party. This is in Ib also. I spent my whole year in Ib. Um, there's a party, and you know, the family is kind of going up and down and going to the kitchen and getting the food and the shahi and all of the stuff and the kak and all that stuff.
yeah,
So two of the sisters who live in the house were in the kitchen, right? So one of them is going to take up the shahi and the other one is going to take up the kak. And one is going ahead, okay, and the other one is behind her. And then, you know, she's like, "Hey, do you got the shahi?" So then she turns around and the shahi is on the stairs and there's nobody there. And she looks into the room and she sees her sister that she thought was behind her.
oh,
So
that's
I
spooky.
don't know about that.
It's
Doesn't
listen, it
right.
happens. It happens. Like I've seen people like swear by that, and like I don't know. I actually believe them. Like even if I'm like, okay, they don't have a motive to lie. It's just there, and the lie is very creative. Like it's very creative for someone to like make it up or something, and it's just like they're genuinely like I don't know. It makes a good story. So
No,
I
she said she legit seen. Like this is like an auntie, you know what I'm saying? Like why did she I
yeah
don't think she's gonna lie, but at the same time that's such a trippy story. I don't know
okay
what to say.
yeah yeah. Alhamdulillah. I feel like you have to
أعوذ
like
بالله من الشيطان
yeah.
الرجيم.
Bismillah. But yeah, jinns is a very important aspect of the Yemeni storytelling. Um, what was your biggest takeaway from Yemen, from your visit, or like, yeah,
Takeaway. I mean, it's home. You know, it's home. So while I was born and raised here, all my life, Bay Area born and raised, but I've always thought of and looked at Yemen as home. You know, it's the homeland. And, you know, even now as a mom, I want to take my kids back there. But, you know, unfortunately, the situation is what it is. So I can't. But it's home, it's safe. And also, I mean, subhanallah al-azim, the history of Yemen, especially in the context of Islamic history, is beautiful. It's one of the oldest inhabited nations in the world. Um, it's home to many prophets. It is the birthplace of the Arab world. So I am so proud to be Yemeni, and you know, I mean, my the fight that you see, the other hat that I wear, is really because I can't stand what's happening in Yemen, and it runs through my blood. And even if I never get to go back there, it will always still be home. So the takeaway is that, you know, I think I want to go back home. I don't know. You're going to make me start crying. I mean, I really, inshallah, pray for it to go back to the way it once was, um, the Yemen that we all remember, and we get to
yeah,
experience all those scary, funny stories.
yeah. Well, thank you for sharing it. It reminded me of like Yemen is so crazy, so beautiful, like rich history, and like within like different cities, within different even villages, like 20, it's so different, but like there's a common denominator, and that's like their love and generosity and simpleness. They're so simple, and it was just it's beautiful. It's really wholesome how like simple and and generous to each other and lovable to each other, and it's just sometimes I feel a bit homesick, but inshallah, Yemen one day can be the Yemen that it was and even better. And I thank you so
inshallah.
much for sharing. Thank you for being our amazing first guest. And thank you so much. Have a great evening. And
Thank you,
oh,
everyone, for listening. I hope I didn't scare everybody.
I hope not. I hope so too, so they can sign up for our and like for our series to hear more amazing stories from different people, um, Yemenis or non-Yemenis. If you've been to Yemen or haven't, I'm sure you all have stories. So like share them with the world. Bye everyone. Sam.